Really, in the context of our consideration of Section 48, I and my colleagues moved the amendment, Amendment 95B. It was pointed out in the course of that debate that the assumption that somebody had applied in the past and had been recommended would not of itself justify the provision unless that person still wanted to be appointed to the position for which they previously applied and for which they had previously been recommended. So, in light of that discussion, we've tendered a new Section 49 to the bill. And the new Section 49 reads, where the Commission has in the previous 3 years recommended the appointment of any person to any type of judicial office, that person shall, for the purpose of this Act, also be deemed to be recommended to any judicial office of the same type, except where the person has notified the Commission or the Secretary to the Government that he or she no longer wishes to be considered for appointment to such an office. In my view, this is a perfectly reasonable thing, because and this provision would, in my view, hugely enhance the proper operation of this legislation, were it by any mischance to be enacted. The reason I say that is this: that if somebody has been shortlisted in the previous 3 years and has been recommended to the Government for appointment to a particular position, there should be no question whatsoever of their being publicly deemed to be a non-recommended person if the Government receives a different shortlist which doesn't contain their name within a short period of time, 3 years. So that if, for instance, a High Court judge, he or she was successful in applying to the Commission, successful in being included in a shortlist of 3 that went to Government, and if in the meantime one of that shortlist was appointed, meaning that there were 2 people who were disappointed persons, perhaps, in not being appointed by the Government, it would seem strange indeed that, you know, if a similar appointment arose, say, within 6 months, 9 months, or a year, that the Government could not say, well, the Commission recommended Mr. Justice so-and-so or Ms. Justice so-and-so for appointment to a similar position, a similar vacancy in the courts. We were disposed to appoint somebody else, but that person was not merely an also-ran, but was somebody who we considered was suitable for the job. And then to see, oh, they aren't included on the list, the short list this time. They've somehow slipped out of the running order from which we are expected to make a selection. And the arguments against such a provision are, in my view, completely empty and specious. I mean, what harm could this amendment do? It couldn't create a situation where somebody was unwilling, somebody who was willing to be appointed was given the position in unfortunate circumstances. And this raises another question. Is someone in that position, a judge of the High Court, for instance, are they expected to continually reapply? Are they to be interviewed for each appointment? Are they to be asked different questions? Are they to be asked, you know, is there anything in the last, since you last applied for recommendation to the Government, which should cause us to take a negative view of your application? Is something like that envisaged? Or is it simply that, and this is a point that I'm worried about, if the Commission is putting up a shortlist which is influenced by considerations such as gender, if, say, let's take an example, if the Government decided to appoint a woman judge. Is the next list to also be gender influenced, so that the two males who were disappointed candidates on the last occasion the Commission takes a look at them again and say, no, we'd like to have two.